What's up? Welcome back. In this segment, I'm going to talk about the train wreck, which was Batman versus Superman. Um, this is gonna be spoilers, so if you've never seen the movie yet, you could click it off. I mean, but the funny thing with this movie is, I'm a Marvel fan, and I was really rooting for Batman versus Superman. One, because I like the characters. Superman and Batman. Really, Justice League. Really, Justice League was the first DC comic book I ever bought. And after that, you can't help but know Superman and Batman. They're probably the most popular superheroes ever, right? So even if you're a Marvel fan back in the days, you just know Batman and Superman. So, and I also have to admit, I do think Marvel's get a little stagnant, and I think that the competition would help. So I'm rooting. I was and still am rooting for DC. So if you're a DC fan, don't get mad at what I'm about to say. I'm just telling the truth. Now, when you look at this movie, you get two different voices. On one hand, you get the critics who are just bashing it. And I think Rotten Tomatoes has a 30%, right, which is really low. I mean, that's like Catwoman type low shit, right? Um, and then the DC fans like it, but what is interesting is because the truth is somewhere in the middle. But then it's even scarier because it's somewhere in the middle, but at times it's worse than the critics even saying. Because when you look at the critics, they talk about how bad the movie is. The beginning of the movie. I mean, really, because to be honest, you label it Superman versus Batman, but Superman and Batman really only fight in the movie for like 8 minutes, and they fight at the end, and the fight wasn't even that great. Now, if you want to say who won, well, Batman won. If you want to say, well, Louis Lane had to save Superman, but did he really win? I mean, it was lame that I knew the only way Batman could beat Superman is with kryptonite, and that's exactly what they did. And it's kind of funny because when you're doing the movies, even though you have the comics as material, when you ask a casual Superman fan, everyone knows about the kryptonite stuff. But most people don't even realize if you read Superman comics long enough, you realize, Superman is vulnerable to kryptonite, but he's vulnerable big time to magic. He's vulnerable at times to telepathy. There's other ways to beat Superman, but Batman doesn't have that in his arsenal. So you knew automatically the only way he was going to beat Superman is with kryptonite, and that's exactly what they did. Now, the problem I have is that, yes, the movie is called Superman versus Batman. They only fight for one time, really. Really one time. The fight wasn't that great. Then they're using this as a catalyst to launch the other Justice League or other DC properties. Which, here's the thing, they're rushing it. So automatically, I knew that it was gonna have a hard time. Like I didn't expect it to be an Avengers type good movie. I expected it to be different. I expected DC to go on their own lane. They tried to do it. They tried to make it dark. They tried to make it adult. Here's the problem. They have Batman in the movie branding a whole bunch of people who he I guess you could say stops from doing criminal acts and has the little bat logo on their necks, right? And I went to movies with casual fans, right? People who are not comic book fans, and they were like, "Damn, that was kind of corny." And it's funny because at first when I was looking at it, I didn't think it was corny. The Batman he uphands criminals and then he brands his logo on their neck and made it dark, made it feel dark. And then I realized why they said it was corny. They said it was corny because you just can't say. Think of it, Batman. Like when you look at the Christopher Bale, what is it? What's the guy's name? The guy with the American Psycho. I forgot his name right now, right? But the Christopher Nolan, freak it, the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. When you look at them, why are they dark? Because it exists in a world where there are no superheroes. See, I remember the creator of the Game of Thrones said this about the butterfly effect. When you bring certain characters in together, right? They're gonna change each other. So Batman's a guy with no superpowers. He's a guy who you could make it dark if it's in his universe and if there are no superheroes, right? Once you add the element of Superman to it, he does not ever going to seem as scary as he was when there's no Superman in his world. The same thing happened in CW shows of Flash and Arrow. You notice Arrow's first few seasons without Flash, it was dark as hell. You had Flash and you had metahumans in, Arrow changed in so much. It's changed so much that the show to me hasn't recovered since Flash has came in. This is the same thing with Batman. He's never going to be the same because you're putting Superman in it. You're putting aliens in it. No one's gonna be scared of a guy, even if he has a Batmobile and he has his jets and he has these gadgets. It's not the same anymore. So I think when DC tried to make it crazy, overly dark, Problem is gonna be is that a good writer would tell you it's not gonna work if you're trying to do it where you say, well, Marvel's all dark, I'm all light, so we're gonna make it all dark. Didn't work. That was the first thing. So number one, you have Batman Superman fight Kryptonite. You already know that's kind of lame. It'll work because it's only Batman can beat Superman. But here's the especially if you don't want to get comic book and say, yeah, Superman has other ways you could beat him. I mean, again, Batman may not have that in his arsenal though. Batman's not really a magician. Batman doesn't have telepathy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you could even get past that. But then the villain, Lex Luthor, was horrible. Lex Luthor was the worst part of this movie. It's almost like they had Lex Luthor almost acting like Joker. He was nervous, he was fidgety. Lex Luthor is a don in the comic books. He's an OG. He's a person who's cool. This guy, just was terrible. I mean, and there was so many writing flaws. It wasn't even funny. As much as I said Batman and Superman fought about 8 minutes, literally, Wonder Woman was in probably 4 different scenes, maybe 5 different really sequences of scenes in the movie. If you really add them up, that was about 10 minutes. So, and it's funny because Wonder Woman, I gotta admit, the actress who plays her, the Israeli woman, she did a really good job. I mean, Wonder Woman was probably probably the best part of the movie. I'm not gonna lie, it's no question. And when I was looking at the movie, I realized why DC will have a hard time matching the success of Marvel. Yes, the core comic book fans, we the ones who push these things, right? We the ones who care. Like for me, even though I admit Batman and Superman was a train wreck, if you ask me, would you see it again? I'll say, hell yeah, I'll see it again. If you ask me when it comes out on the streaming services, would you watch it again? I say, hell yeah, I'll watch it again. Because I'm a fucking comic book fan, right? That's what we do. But DC characters in general are perfect. When you really look at DC versus look at the Marvel characters, DC characters is much more powerful, at times darker, but they're perfect. And because they're perfect, and when I say perfect, they don't have flaws. Like even when you look at Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in this movie, when you look at all three of them, all of them are trying to be perfect. When you look at a Marvel movie, Iron Man's a drunk, he ain't perfect. Cap's a man out of time who is a good guy, but he has insecurities because he just feels like, what am I doing here in this time period? They have flaws. Black Widow, she's a killer. Sometimes maybe she had to sell sex, right? So all those characters have flaws. When you look at DC right now, these characters have no flaws. It's funny because even when Zack Snyder said the DC actor who play the actor who plays Flash on the CW show, he said he loves him, but he doesn't have the tone for what he's trying to do in this. So obviously the CW universe is a separate universe. It's a different multiverse. It's a different universe, right? I wonder what this Earth is. We got Flash and our Earth with the Arrowverse. That's Earth 1. We got the Earth with Zoom. That's Earth 2. Supergirl looks like it's Earth 3. So what's the DC Earth? Probably Earth 4, right? But it's kind of interesting because he said he didn't have the right tone, and I admit I can see that. But here's the problem. The thing is that you can say he doesn't have the right tone, but you don't understand that once you are introducing something like the Justice League, you, in a sense, have to. It's not just about you saying, "Oh, I'm gonna just put a dark tone." You have to almost mesh the pieces together and feel out how you want it to go. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's like if you look at Captain America 2, or what is it 2? What's it 2? Yeah, Captain America 2. That was fairly dark for a Marvel Disney joint. I don't know if they wanted it to be like that, but they put the pieces together, and they kind of let it kind of grow by itself. I think that's what DC got to do. I think when you look at their characters, like so far, you can tell, like, once they said, oh, we don't want Flash to be that light. Why not? Because then they're going to try to make Flash overly dark. And I don't know if overly dark on the cinematic screen, because that's the thing you got to understand. You're putting these movies on the cinematic screen. It's not on comic books. And you're trying to appeal to a broader audience. Yes, you have to please the fanboys, which I got to admit, I am shocked that the DC fans actually say, like, they're defending it. I understand some people were going to defend it, but the movie was really bad. I mean, when you look at it, it was bad. I mean, you got Batman and Superman only fight 7 minutes. You got Batman uses kryptonite on Superman. You even have things like Lex Luthor saying this is the greatest gladiator match in the history of mankind. Why is it the greatest gladiator match in the history of mankind? Are you saying it because they're iconic characters? Like, when you're writing a movie, you have to write the movie as things are happening within the movie. You can't write it in terms of, if I write a movie about John Smith and John Smith is famous, right, before the movie. When I'm writing the movie, I have to write it on, no, John Smith is a character who just started in this movie. If that makes any sense. He just you can't take his reputation from the outside and bring it in, because why would it be the greatest gladiator match? That would make no sense. Casual fans look at Batman Superman. See, casual fans don't realize why Batman Superman is so big, right? Batman Superman is huge because that's what I mean. First, it happened in the comic books a few times. Even when it didn't happen, they have in the comics they're best friends. Sometimes they have rivalry. Sometimes, shit. Sometimes they both fuck Wonder Woman, right? It's an interesting relationship. But this is the movies, though. The movies, none of this stuff has happened yet. So even when you say lines like, oh, this is the greatest gladiator match in history of mankind, why is it the greatest gladiator match in history of mankind? And in fact, you can tell when they wrote the movie, they had it from that point of view. This is the greatest gladiator match in history of mankind, which obviously it wasn't. In this movie, Batman goes from wanting to kill Superman, Lois Lane had to save Superman from dying, to when Superman actually dies in the movie, then Batman is sad and says that this is my friend. Makes no sense. No sense at all. Because when you look at Bruce Wayne's speech, and he says, there's only a 1% chance he will destroy the planet, we have to act on it. I have to fight him. Even when Bruce Wayne says, oh, okay, Batman says, okay, Superman is not the bad guy. Do you know that for sure? Meaning, is there still a 1 or 2% chance that he is? If there's a 1 or 2% chance he is, okay, I don't expect him to want to fight him after he realizes he's not bad. But he wouldn't call him his friend. He would still be cautious. And that's just not even good writing. That's actually just common sense. None of that shit took place at all. At all. Even, and then the biggest thing, when I say that Batman and Superman, the DC characters, are not flawed, the biggest thing about it, you know how you know they're not flawed? Because, let's be real. Batman is looking at Wonder Woman. He's looking at Superman. He's looking at metahumans. He never at one time says, damn, I'm just a guy in a cape. Never at one time. Alfred says a little bit, okay, going up against Superman and suicide. But that's about it. Anyone in his position will be like, damn, I'm just a guy with a cape and some gadgets. And you know what's funny? I know in terms of the way DC makes their characters, he wouldn't say that. So I admit, he wouldn't say that in terms of how DC makes their characters perfect, but that's the reason why it ain't going to work. At the end of the day, the reason why it's not going to work, because people want to see some type of humanity in their characters. I mean, the movie introduces the metahuman when Lex Luthor is talking to the senator and they're talking about making a weapon that could hurt Superman. They even mentioned the metahuman theory. If you're not a fan of DC, you don't even know what that is. That's the thing. You don't even know what that is. So you look at it and then on top of that, Lex Luthor has these files on Cyborg. He has files on Flash. When this is really a clip. He has a clip of Aquaman. And the crazy part of it is he actually puts their symbol on the file. So when you see Flash, you see a lightning symbol. Are you serious? Is Lex Luthor Flash's publicist? That makes no sense. One of the main cool things about the movie, I would say, other than all the freaking writing holes, they kind of hinted at Darkseid, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, I gotta admit, it was pretty cool to see that. But the thing is, I hope they don't rush that, because it seems like they would, and it seems like Darkseid would probably have to be the only DC villain. I mean, I don't think they'll wait as long as Thanos and Marvel, where Marvel's been hinting at Thanos, and Thanos still hasn't really engaged Avengers yet. I think Warner Brothers is crazy enough to have Darkseid fight the Justice League, and probably Justice League 1, which I think will probably be a mistake. But the thing is, when you go overboard and making something dark and making it seem like the stakes are higher than it is, because realistically, the stakes are not really that high. You can tell the stakes are not that high because they had to bring Doomsday in, and then they had to kill Superman off, right? Because if you just have Batman and Superman, how is the stakes really high? Because you eventually know they're going to be friends. So the stakes are not going to be that high. So when you go overboard and making this shit dark, what are you going to do when the whole Justice League has to come together to fight Darkseid? Not going to work. So no question, at a scale of 1 to 10, this movie gets a 3. It's really bad. If you're a DC fan, I expect you to say it's a 6. I expect you to defend it, but I also expect you to be real. You gotta admit, this is your biggest. This is your biggest weapon you have. You have this is the two biggest characters. You put them all in the same movie. You add Wonder Woman in it. You have a weapon in terms of the fact that, hey, shit, fuck it, it is what it is. How much Marvel movies were there? About 10. We got like what? 2 Captain America movies, 3 Iron Man movies. That's 5. 2 Avengers movies. That's 7. 2 Thors. That's 9. I know I'm missing something. I'm not gonna even count the Hulk. But I mean, let's say I count the Hulk if I want to. That's 10. I mean, we've had over 10 Marvel. Oh yeah, Ant-Man, 11, Guardians of the Galaxy, 12. We've had almost 15 Marvel movies. This is like your first new one on this new branch that you're gonna do, and this is the biggest weapon you had. This is what you put out. Oh, shame on you, DC. Terrible. Scale of 1 to 10, I get that shit at 3. Until next time, peace.